Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Now with me in the studio, I have Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, and Mr. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, national development advocate, and fellow, Institute of Leadership, Coaching and Strategy. Gentlemen, good to have you in the studio.
Pleasure.
Yes, very good. A very happy Sunday. But before we go over the topics, I think if we were to list the topics, we'll have about 12. So I'm not going to provide any summary. Just to invite you to join me in wishing Ijoma Nwogugu a very happy birthday. She's 60 today. And as soon as I leave this desk, we're going to celebrate special implications. Ijoma Nwogugu at 80. Former editor of This Day newspaper, former executive director This Day, former managing director of Arise News. She's 60 years today, December 14. And we are celebrating. Okay, gentlemen, welcome. And
Thank you very much.
Yes, we've taken about 12 topics. I don't want to bore you with any summary. But Mr. Ologun, let me start with you. A number of legal issues. Nigeria's intervention in Benin, ambassadorial posting, whether the judiciary can overrule presidential pardon or clemency and all of that. And then, of course, all the foreign topics that Ambassador Keshi discussed. And then Opeyemi Adamolekun, one of us, celebrating Enough is Enough at 15. Let me start with you.
Thank you very much. Let's celebrate Enough is Enough. To start with, it's been a narrative of resilience, of courage, of demanding accountability. And I can say that the impact is being felt. And I appreciate that part of mobilizing the citizenry to appreciate the need for, participatory democracy. And I can say that in some quarters, the perception that government does not listen, some of them are beginning to listen to the yearnings of the citizens. And it's already a movement with a very sound structure. And I personally congratulate her for all she has done before retiring and passing the baton to someone else to run it. And we look forward that eventually, someday, a good governance may be given back to in Nigeria. And that brings us to the issue of the president insisting that the police escort for the VIPs and some important personalities be withdrawn. And he's insisting on that. And the monitoring we have done has revealed that some private organizations who are into security are currently overwhelmed because these are personalities that are used to that special security they have been enjoying. And of course, the issues that have prompted this is what applies to the majority of citizens in the country, a need for effective policing, because we have said it, even when you find the military intervening in the issue of banditry, kidnapping, and insecurity in the country, it's not constitutional. The constitutionally approved body is the police. And I believe we have about 378,000 policemen. And what the UN speaks about is about 1 to 450 in a population, 450 citizens, in a population of over 200 million. And I expect that the VIPs will adjust. And of course, we have the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps that is equally capable and armed. And we have even learned that some members of the DSS are already patronizing. And something caught my attention. One of the VIPs saying they are courting them for the juicy position. And that's an aspect many have not paid attention to. This issue of having a VIP escort is many billions of naira project because it doesn't come for free. And again, when you talk of change management, the officers that are now being withdrawn, you need to work on them because they're already used to that elated service provision. And now you want to move some of them, take them to some villages or hometowns to go and police. It may not just log in like that. And of course, it has come now to the public domain that we all need security in the country. And I appreciate the guests who mentioned the need for some judicial officers, particularly judges, to be protected. Yes, we all need protection, but let's see how we can adjust so that we can have a large-scale and macro protection for the citizens. And to the House of Senate on the taking a bow, it has almost become a culture. And when I saw the exchange of superiority between Senator Dume and Senator Oshiomhole, my conclusion is that at the end of the day, none of them could stop Reno Omokri from crossing over. And we also need, as a government, to listen to the citizens. In public relations, that's what we call perception. In fact, somebody painted a picture that it's like we don't have democracy in Nigeria, that we have politocracy. And I wondered, what is politocracy? That the government of the politicians, for the politicians, and by the politicians. And I think that is what somebody was making mention to, that all you need to do now as a young lady is try and marry a future governor, and you can be sure that you remain politically relevant. We need to really look, but we expect that they will understand the assignments given to them. And right now, Nigeria needs a lot of work in handling our image and reputation globally. And to Benin Republic, where our president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, deployed a troop to go and quell the coup attempts there. If you look at Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it has the power, and of course, under subsection 5, the Senate can ratify it if it was done without the previous ratification from the Senate, and which, of course, has been done. And I also appreciate the fact that ECOWAS has a treaty that will, make nations help one another, and Nigeria still claims to be the giant of Africa, the big brother. And what some are concerned about is the moral aspect of it, that, hey, if you could quickly deploy the air power, the ground power, and, leverage on intelligence to quell a coup attempt in a neighboring country, why have you not been able to deal with the problems you have at home? And I draw the attention of the government to that is critical. But I also believe that the insecurity problems we have in Nigeria, we can overcome it, particularly with the interventions coming from the US. And I'm happy that when the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, visited the US, we got a report that there is now a robust interaction between US and Nigeria on how to help Nigeria overcome the insecurity we have. But one obvious revelation is that the government is fully aware of the problems we have in the country. They also know how to solve the problems. But the weak area is the political will and the courage to confront those I call the owners of Nigeria, in quotes, who allegedly sponsor the crime against the land. I wish my president and commander-in-chief the best to, at least at the primary level, pass the examination of Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution that says that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. And on the international scene, I also agree. When it comes to conflict resolutions, there are steps you need to take. You need to identify what the issues are, bring the parties together, look at common grounds of interest to them, make them to dialogue, come to some resolutions that are applicable, and you implement. And now Zelensky is saying, by virtue of the Constitution, morally speaking, and by the powers of the people, that he is not willing to concede territory to Russia. And Russia is saying that but we understand the conversation is on. And I agree that the approach of Donald Trump, picking the proposal of Russia, presenting it as if is the best one. They are balancing it. And let me round up now by coming to what happened during the week, which is the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, that the Council of States cannot grant state pardon in respect of, a case of homicide. that is currently a matter before the Supreme Court. And I think when I saw that, I was quite excited. And I said, now we are waking up in Nigeria in terms of checks and balances that we study under civic, because there are three arms of government. And since 1963, when we became a republic, the Supreme Court remains the highest court in the land. So, and I don't know how the government will handle this, particularly if we rewind and see how that exercise was not neatly carried out. And we need to begin to present Nigeria as a country that has respect for justice. Recall when we sent a delegate to the UK asking for Ekweremadu to be transferred to Nigeria to come and complete his sentence here. The UK said no, even though there was a treaty signed in 2014 to that effect, that we are not going to release him because we cannot trust Nigeria to deliver justice. And I think we must be seriously concerned about that. And on that note, in the interim, let me raise
separation of powers, Berondo Montesquieu, Spirit of Law, 1748. Over to you, Professor Aworawo.
L'esprit de loi.
Yes, the spirit of the law.
Yeah, but let me just begin from there. The Supreme Court has made its pronouncement, but in practical terms, is ineffectual. Because if you look at the Constitution all through, the Supreme Court cannot override presidential pardon. So at the end of the day, it is just academic. But it only speaks to the untidiness of what the presidency did. The case was still before the Supreme Court. It has not been, finally determined. And the government rushed to grant presidential pardon. It just speaks to the untidiness. But when you take the whole thing together, the Supreme Court's pronouncement is ineffectual because presidential pardon, even with the pronouncement of the Supreme Court that the death sentence for Sanda remains, the presidential pardon still remains. Even if the Supreme Court have concluded the matter, and the president says they are granting pardon to Sanda.
They reduce it to 5 years.
Yes,
exactly.
that is what stands. I mean, the Supreme Court cannot override the presidency, but it just speaks to the untidiness that the presidency ought to have waited for all of these things to be tidied up. Also, ought to have looked at the gravity of the whole thing, and then compared with other people who are still languishing in jail. That should have informed presidential decision on the matter, but that was not. So at the end of the day, the lady will serve that 5 years and will come out because the Supreme Court does not have the powers to override the presidency when there is determination to grant pardon. We've been comparing this all over the week, read through the Constitution back and forth. And that is what, the spirit of the law reveals. That is what will eventually prevail. I come to the security issue, which is very troubling. I want to first appreciate President Trump. I look at people case by case on the basis of what they have done at different times, not dismissing someone as bad totally on account of who they are. Because President Trump, it was who on the 30th of October, 31st, made those comments about concern about Christians in Nigeria, and then country of concern and all of that. It is that's those set of actions that has led to this flurry of activities in Nigeria to now pay attention to this insecurity frontally as it ought to be without any prodding from any country. Just the other week, the Minister of Defense was changed. And I'm happy because those who are now in charge of the defense are now populated by those that I will call the maximalists. The maximalist versus the minimalist. The defense minister that was removed or that resigned belonged to the minimalist group. His minister of state, who is still there, Matawali, belongs to the minimalist group. So at some point, the place was populated by the minimalists. And when I say minimalist, I mean those who believe that minimal force by government to the terrorists, paying ransom, negotiating, and all of that. But the new Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, and Nuhu Ribadu. In fact, I listened to Nuhu Ribadu's statement January 1st this year, when he was talking about the Lakurawa. He was so upset and talking about to blow up their heads. So he belongs to the maximalists as well. So we'll be seeing action. Just last night, one of those very vicious ones in Sokoto was taken out. They are chasing them all over the place. We need more action like that. Because our study of insecurity and violence and terrorism shows that it is that kind of force that will be effective. There is no one single example of negotiations, paying of ransom that was effective in checking insecurity. Sometimes when the force now becomes very intense, is the terrorists who will now be begging for negotiation. At that point then, you can conclude it. That was what was done to ISIS. When ISIS was killing people, carrying out genocide from 2014 to 2016, the world was shocked. And then the world came together, that global coalition, 2016. 2017, it became effective. By 2019, it was gone. All the territories they occupied, 95% of them captured. The caliphate was just decimated. That is just the only way. And I'm happy we are moving towards that direction. It now takes me to, the convoys, those VIPs and all the rest of them. We speak of VIPs as if they are not Nigerians. The VIPs are Nigerians. And yes, you see, the VIPs will not be looking for so many policemen to protect them if we had security. And the same thing for which the president needs 80 cars to follow him. The president's son needs so much security, for which Professor Shoyinka lamented in the course of the week. These VIPs too need something like that. So, like I said the other week, the IGP needs to take a list and see those who really need it, those who don't really need it. The withdrawal should not be before assessing those who need it. Otherwise, you begin to hear of people being killed. They are Nigerians as well. The Dutch Prime Minister was working one morning. A Nigerian lady met him. They were walking towards the same direction. This is the Prime Minister. And she was taking selfie with him. The Dutch Prime Minister is not a fatalist who wants to die. He was able to walk like that freely because of security. There was security. So these VIPs too will not be looking for 20, 30 military men, policemen if we have security. So addressing the fundamentals is important. And the hurriedly withdrawing this thing will not be in the interest of everybody because the VIPs are also Nigerians. It has to be systematic, it has to be methodical, so that nobody is put in harm's way in the implementation of this. While, of course, just as Barrister Ologun has said, the policemen that will come from there, they can be put to fruitful use, and then Nigeria can be more secure. I congratulate our sister Adama Lekun for all that she has done. You recall that on the anniversary of NSAS, she was like the solo person there, laying wreath, and they even harassed her, even for the things. So I congratulate her, and I would hope that she will not go to sleep, even though she's stepping back a bit, that she will not go to sleep, that her advocacy will continue. All of these things are needed to have a sane society. Then the ECOWAS and all the troubles. Unfortunately, it seems that things will get a bit worse or a lot worse before they get better for ECOWAS. As long as these military people, these coup plotters are taking over all over the place. I agree with Ambassador Keshi that politicians and their failures is a major factor in many of the coups we have had. See, for instance, Cote d'Ivoire. I was very, very angry when, just a few days ago, this man was sworn in again, Alassane Ouattara, who was supposed to be a Democrat, for whom everybody fought. He has also now gone to do what others did before him. But I also want to add, just as I was trying to add for Professor Killer last week, that we also have military men who are just adventurers, who don't have any cause to, overthrow a government. For instance, Benin Republic. The Benin Republic is going April next year. So what is the justification for the military attempting to overthrow him? There is no justification.
Well, he has abolished constitutional limits. He's imposing finance minister as president in April. He has driven the opposition out of town. He's suppressing...
That third one, yes.
He's suppressing free speech.
That third one, opposition, yes, that is very concerning. But the man says he's going in April next year. And by the way, the military who come in too, they also sit tight. most of the time they want to carry out a metamorphosis and become civilian presidents, and they also want to leave too. And they have not been known to govern better. So altogether, whether military or civilian, everybody should stay on his lane. If everybody does his work as is expected, there will be no problem. Let me comment maybe finally on social media. Is it under 16?
Australia.
Yes,
under 14.
Under 14, yeah. It is very, very good. I wholeheartedly support it. Children's lives are potentially to be destroyed by social media. I went to a restaurant and I saw mostly young people, of course, not so young people too were there. I counted 16 tables. The place was unusually quiet. 16 tables. 15 of the 16 was busy with the phone. Only one was not engrossed. That was why the place was very quiet. It is becoming an epidemic. And when those affected are so young, it's even worse. What societies can do to ensure that these things don't destroy us is good. So I support the move by the Australian government. Let's see how it works out. Of course, laws are not supposed to be cast in iron and stone. As things unfold, when adjustments are needed, they can carry out adjustments.
So the Australian ban has become a test case for the rest of the world. Well, thank you very much. Let's take another topic, and I'm going to come back to you, knowing that Professor Aworawo is a sports aficionado. 12 years. That's how long Nigeria has waited to lift a 4th AFCON trophy. And as the Super Eagles head to Morocco 2025, the question is simple. Is this finally the year they chase down number 4? National team coach Eric Shaw's 28-man squad blends firepower, fresh faces, and a few high-risk decisions, and none bigger than a goal. Our Rice correspondent, Ebi Yomo, reports.
Nigeria's quest for a 4th African Cup of Nations title enters a fresh chapter in Morocco, with coach Eric Shaw naming a 28-man squad that blends promise, risk and redemption. After finishing as runners-up in 2024, the Super Eagles return, determined to end a 12-year wait for continental glory. The biggest uncertainty surrounds the goalkeeping position. Stanley Wabali, the hero of the last AFCON, remains a fitness doubt, leaving Nigeria to rely once again on Francis Uzoho, a choice that divides opinion. Uzoho's return is both a gamble and a shot at redemption. Chelsea's squad also ushers in new faces: Ryan Alebeosu, Igor Ogbu, and young striker Lawal Salim Fago. Midfield prospects Ebenezer Akinsomiro and Tochukwu Unadi join established names like Wilfred Indidi and Alex Iwobi. There are notable comeback stories too. Paul Onuachu earns a recall after a resurgence in Turkey, hoping to prove he belongs beside Victor Osimhen in a powerful Nigerian attack. Uzoho likewise gets another chance to alter his national narrative. But the list also features major omissions. Maduka Okoye misses out completely, and striker Terry Murphy is left out of the final squad. Decisions that increase the pressure on both the goalkeeping and striking units. Still, Nigeria's forward line remains one of the tournament's strongest. Osimhen leads an attacking cast that includes Ademola Lookman, Samuel Chukwueze, Moses Simon, Ako Adams, Chidera Ejuke, and Cyril Dessers. With captain William Strauss-Ekong's retirement from the national team, injury to Benjamin Frederick, who's been a revelation in the defense, Igor Ogbu, Ryan Alebeosu will need to step up and join the likes of Calvin Bassey, Shemi Ajayi, Bruno Oyemechi, and co in defense. Drawn against Tunisia, Tanzania, and Uganda in Group C, Nigeria faces a manageable but tricky path. Consistency and composure will be key. As the team heads to their camp in Egypt, the mission is clear: heal the wounds of 2024, silence the doubts, and mount a real push for a long-awaited 4th AFCON crown. Whether this squad can deliver remains to be seen. A.B. Iyomo, Arise News.
Okay, we have the new squad for AFCON in Morocco. Your assessment, Professor Aworawo.
Well, incidentally, I was there in the last time Nigeria won the AFCON in South Africa. I watched matches in Mpumalanga and, of course, Soccer City. And since then, unfortunately, Nigeria hasn't been able to triumph to get that fourth trophy. The last one, they played final against Cote d'Ivoire, the host. And after a good promise with go ahead, considered 2 goals, and then the cup went to Cote d'Ivoire. I must be very frank. I'm not very optimistic that Nigeria can win this AFCON. If they win it, I will be very pleased. But I'm not very optimistic that Nigeria can win this AFCON. Reason being this, I agree with the report that the attack, fantastic. Sime is there, Nwachu is there, and a host of others who work together in that attack. Very potent. But the squad also has a whole lot of weaknesses. The defense is not as solid as you would expect.
Well, Nwabali is injured.
Yes, and
yes,
and not up and coming. They've always been there, but not. Yes, that's one. And then we have Simi Ajayi to the left. We have Ndidi. He's not the most solid of defense. Then the defensive midfield is equally not as strong as one would expect. Then the midfield, there is skill, not enough creativity as you also expect, which became obvious in our match against DR Congo. That's a World Cup playoff. So with all those weaknesses, and then, again, desire. The last time we discussed DR Congo versus Nigeria, that match, which many Nigerians became very disappointed, Tony Bitoye made a statement. He said the Nigerian squad is solid, the Congolese squad is also solid. That it will boil down to who wants it more. And if you watch that match that night, it was clear that the Congolese wanted it more. We have many players that do not want to stress themselves, such as...
they are VIPs, please.
who don't want to stress themselves. Look at that ball that led to the goal. They took the ball, took the ball, and then instead of the man running after the man who had the ball, he simply ran and stood. And the other man who took the ball continued running. And he was the one that eventually scored. So you could see the contrast. One was pushing ahead. The other one just ran 150 meters and then stopped. And, but if they work hard, even with the deficiencies here and there, they could still win. But I'm not very optimistic. I can only wish Nigeria all the best for the AFCON.
Okay. Mr. Ologun.
Let me encourage Prof to be optimistic. There's something we call strategy. It's a long-time plan for success, and we have the tactics aspect of it. So if the team is willing to leverage on bringing their various creativity together, I expect that even though both teams are out to achieve results with determination,
Yeah.
we
need a whole lot of it.
Determination.
Not big man.
Because the reshuffling reflects the fact that, okay, we need to bring the victory. But you see, it's the performance that counts. Like a wise man said, you don't drown by falling into water. You drown by remaining in water. So whatever has weakened our performances, we should look at them, do proper SWOT analysis, and go out there and go for the goals. Like Muhammad Ali will tell you, you go out there and sting. And
sting like a...
So we look forward to...
a bee, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should add that if people like Alessi Iwobi lose the ball, it was not that lost the ball the last time. Pursue the man who has collected the ball from you. Don't stand. There's no big man in this team. Everybody should do that. If they do that, they can win this AFCON.
Prof,
that is determination.
You cannot be more correct. It's just that Nigerians are very good football managers and football commentators.
In fact, when I watch people
watching football
and the comments and everything, I wish we could just pack everybody, throw them into the field and say, okay,
go and play.
Take the jersey and
go
score
and make
the goal.
it happen.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you very much. Mr. Jide Ologun. And thank you, Professor David Aworawo. I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.